Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'm Sank84 and welcome to my birthday special. And what a special I have for you today. Now, the reason this birthday is extra special is because I turn 40. Yes, I am officially old. Moment of silence for my youth. Okay, let's get on with it then, shall we? So today, yes, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be trying to explain European football to Americans. Now, why, you might ask? Well, it's simple. I sat down and I was going through ideas of what to do for today's special. And nothing was really sticking. Nothing felt right. Until I was listening to a fellow YouTuber by the name of Tyler Rumple, who is just a typical, average American who likes to react to British things. And he was reacting in one of his videos to an explanation on European football. I will link that video down in the comments below if you want to go and watch that. I would recommend it because I do think he is really, really fun to watch. But that being said, there was things in the video I just had a few nitpicks with. And I don't know if it was the video itself or his reaction to what was being said. But there was a few things that I was looking at and going, no, that's not it. So I decided I'm going to give it an attempt. I'm going to try from a British English perspective to explain football to Americans or anybody who doesn't know much about football anyway. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to go through several topics on it from the British perspective, and what I will say is what I describe can be cut and paste to all the other leagues in Europe. Now, a lot of the European countries do have minor changes and a few things that are slightly different, but all in all, it's pretty much the same throughout the European football leagues. Now, of course, there are 39 member leagues representing more than 1,133 clubs over 33 countries across Europe, and that's just the male game. There's also the female side of it as well, and again, it's basically copy and paste for the women's game as well. Now, all of these are overseen by the European Union Football Association, or UEFA, which in turn is overseen by FIFA. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand, and that's the basic pyramid. Each country has their own FA, Football Association, so the English leagues are overlooked by the EFA, the English Football Association. Scotland has its own, the SFA, and France will have theirs, Germany will have theirs. Basically, it's the same, they all have their own. That is then watched over by UEFA, that's watched over by FIFA. Simple. Hopefully, you've got that. Now, in alphabetical order, and I've done it in alphabetical order to be fair, because I didn't want to prejudice the list in any way. Not all leagues are created equal. Some leagues are more prestigious than others for various reasons, but mostly because the biggest teams play in these leagues. So, as I say, the top 5 in alphabetical order is the English Premier League, the French Ligue 1, the German Bundesliga, the Italian Serie A, and Spain's La Liga. They are the top 5 leagues in Europe, and most, if not all, of the big European clubs come from them leagues. Okay, so that's the basic layout, the basic format of Europe and how things stack up. Now, as I say, being English, I'm going to concentrate on the English leagues and how that's set out. But as I say, the bare bones of everything you can copy and paste to other leagues. A few are slightly different, but I'll try and explain them ones if it fits in. So, we're going to concentrate, as I say, on the English football pyramid. And if there's anything I feel relevant that incorporates another country's leagues, I will bring it in. But as I say, the bare bones, the basic blueprint is copy and pasted throughout all European leagues. So, concentrating on the English football pyramid, as we said, yes, there are a total of 84 divisions split over 57 leagues. Now, that sounds really complicated and really confusing, but we can really narrow that down by kind of ignoring a lot of the lower sections. So, the English football pyramid is split into 2. You've got the top 5 divisions. They are classed as your professional leagues. All the teams and all the players in there are classed as professionals. Everything underneath is your amateur leagues. Easy enough. We're going to be concentrating mostly on the top 5. But as I say, it's the same all the way down, really how it all works out. So, the top 5 English leagues are, at the top, we've already mentioned this once, but it is the English Premier League. It consists of 20 teams. You then have, underneath that, the Championship, which consists of 24 teams. League 1, which also has 24 teams in it. League 2, which also has 24 teams in it. And the National League, which again has 24 teams in it. Okay, so how do the leagues work? Well, they are relatively simple. You have the number of teams. Each team plays every other team in the league twice. Once at home, once away. Now, every football team has their own ground, their own stadium that they play their games at. That is classed as their home ground or home stadium, whichever you want to call it. So all their home games get played there in that one place. The away games, well, obviously they are then played at their opponent's home ground. So, for example, we'll take the mighty Everton, who play currently at the time of this recording at Goodison Park, but after 133 years playing at the Old Girl, it's time to come to an end, and at the end of the 24-25 season, we will be moving to a brand new ground. And there are plenty of facts about Goodison that I could go into, but that would be a whole new video that who knows, I might do at some point in the future. Let me know if you'd like to know more about that. That's something I could look into doing as another special at some point. But yes, let's get back to what we're talking about today. And let's say we're playing the trash from across the road, Liverpool. So, when the two teams play, one of the games will be played at Goodison. Everton will be classed as the home team. Liverpool will be classed as the away team. The home team get the majority of the fans. So, for example, it's usually something like 90% of the fans in a stadium are home team fans. Then later on the season, when the two teams play again, we'll play at Anfield, what is Liverpool's home ground, meaning in that game, 90% of the fans there will be Liverpool fans. And 10%, of course, will be the Everton fans. It might actually even be higher than that. It might be close to 95%, but I think on average it is around the 90%. Don't quote me on the percentage, but it's somewhere in the 90% range. The majority of the fans are the home team fans. So, they play each other twice. Every team does that. One game at home, one game away. And at the end of the season, so in the case of the Premier League, after 38 games, you are ranked by points. Points are given out each game. There are 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and that's it. No other points are given out. No points are taken away. That's it. You get 0, 1, or 3 points per game. So it doesn't matter if you win 1-0 or 7-0. You're still going to get 3 points for that win. So, how does this stand up for rankings and your final position in the table at the end of the season? Well, it all goes on points. It doesn't matter about how many wins you have, how many draws, or how many defeats you have. It all goes on the amount of points you've managed to pick up. So, for example, Team 1 could have 14 wins, 14 draws, and 10 defeats, leaving them on 56 points. While the team below them, Team 2, could have 15 wins, 9 draws, and 14 defeats, leaving them on 54 points. So even though the team below has won more games, because of them draws, the points still add up, meaning you finish higher even though you've got less wins. So, okay, fine. But let's say two teams finish on the same points. So, let's say Team 1 has 18 wins, 12 draws, and 8 defeats, giving them 66 points. But Team 2 has 20 wins, 6 draws, and 12 defeats, also leaving them on 66 points. Now, it doesn't go on wins. It goes on goal difference. So, the amount of goals you've scored minus the amount of goals you've conceded over the entire season are then put together, and whoever has the greatest goal difference takes the higher spot. So for in this scenario, let's say Team 1 has a goal difference of plus 30 and Team 2 has a difference of plus 15. That means Team 1 has scored 30 goals more than they've conceded over the season, while Team 2 has only scored 15 more than they've conceded. And that's where the rank goes, whoever has the highest goal difference. Hopefully that has made sense to you, and hopefully the graphics on the screen make it easier to understand if you've not understood the way I've explained it. Now, the bit where the differences come in is at the end of the season. Promotion, relegation, and for only the top leagues in each country, European positions. So, we'll get to the European spots in a moment, but when it comes to the bottom of every league, the bottom set number of teams are in what we call a relegation position. Now, the number of relegation positions varies league to league. In the Premier League, that is 3. The 3 teams who finish bottom of the Premier League, so 20th, 19th and 18th, finish in the relegation zone, meaning they are kicked out of the Premier League, and next season they will play in the Championship. To replace them, the Championship sends up 3 teams. Now, they are the team that finish first, who will automatically get sent up. The team who finish second will automatically get sent up as well. However, they don't get a trophy. And then the teams who play in 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th go into a playoff competition. 3rd and 5th play each other over 2 legs. So the first leg will be played at one ground. The second leg will be played at the other home ground. And then 4th and 6th will do the same. Now, after the 2 games have been played, the scores from both games get added together. And whoever has the highest score takes the win, moves on to the final at Wembley, and will play the winner of the other game. Sounds a bit more complicated the way I've explained it, I understand. So hopefully what you're seeing on screen kind of puts it more into perspective for you and easier to understand. So they then play at Wembley over 1 game, and the winner of that game gets a trophy and promoted to the Premier League. So yeah, I kind of feel sorry for the teams that finish in second, because first place gets a trophy and the winner of the playoffs get a trophy, but coming second you don't get a trophy. I think that should really be changed, but you know what? That's not to do with me. So that's how it works between the Premier League and the Championship. The Championship and League One and League Two, and all the way down. The numbers vary, but it's the same thing. The bottom so many get automatically relegated, and then a number of teams from the league below get promoted up. So, the better you do, the higher up the pyramid you go. The worse you do, the lower down you drop. Obviously, the better you do, the higher up you go, the more money, the more revenue, the better your prestige and all that stuff. That's how teams move between the leagues. Fair, simple. I personally think there should be a few little differences, especially when it comes to the playoffs. I would have it done slightly differently. Me personally, and I know this is meant to be about facts, but you know, we're here, it's my birthday, I'm allowed to put my personal input into it. Personally, I would say, using the Premier League and the Championship, it's the way the Scottish League do it. The bottom 2 are automatically relegated, and the top 2 of the league below are automatically promoted. Then you get 3rd and 4th from bottom play off against each other, and third and fourth from the league below play each other. Now, the winner from the lower league game plays against the loser of the higher league team. Now, the team that in the lower league that loses stays in the league, and the team from the higher league that wins stays in their league. But then the other two play each other in another match, the winner taking the position in the higher league, the loser taking the position in the lower league. I think that'll be a bit better, but again, that's just personal opinion. Okay, now I did say the Premier League at the top was slightly different because they don't have any promotional positions. There's no league to get promoted into. However, there is a number of competitions you can qualify for depending on your position in the league. Now, at the start of the season, the top 4 teams who finish, so assuming there's no changes because these positions can change as the season goes on, but assuming nothing happens to change any positions around, the top 4 teams go into the Champions League, what is a competition filled with the top teams from throughout Europe. They all go into a big competition of their own that gets played the following season, and they also stay in the Premier League. So they'll have 2 competitions that they're playing at the same time. Now, first and second, obviously, if you finish first in the Premier League, you're the Premier League champions. No question with that. And as I say, you're automatically into the Champions League. You finish second, you're the runners-up of the Premier League, but you also get guaranteed qualification into the Champions League. If you finish third and fourth, you have to go into a qualifying competition to make the Champions League. A bit like the playoffs, really. So the only difference is if you win your game, that qualifying game, you go straight into the Champions League. If you lose, you drop down into the Europa League, what is the equivalent of the second division of the European competitions. So that's usually for teams that have either been knocked out of the Champions League at the qualification stage or the first round, or anybody who finishes 5th in the Premier League. Hopefully you are all getting this. Then finally there is one more European competition, the Europa Conference League, and that is for anybody who finishes 6th in the Premier League. Obviously, as I say, other countries, it's pretty much the same. It's just how many from each country make it into what competition. That's a whole different ball game, how that gets worked out. And if I try to explain that, well, that would be, let's just say that would make this video probably 3 times as long. So that's fine. But as I say, qualification for Europe can alter. And that is because of the 2 cup competitions that are running at the same time as the leagues run. Now, the leagues run from August to May. So they start at the end of August and they'll finish around May. Can vary slightly. At the beginning of the season, everyone is on straight standings in the leagues that they've qualified for and all the other European competitions that they qualified for the previous season. As it goes on, there are 2 domestic Cup competitions. There is the FA Cup, then there is the League Cup. Now, this changes its name depending on the sponsor. It's basically the Sponsors' Cup, but more often known by its original name, the League Cup. There is also, on top of that, a one-off game for a trophy that starts the entire football season off. And that is called the Charity Shield. Now this, as I say, starts off the entire season. It is a one-off cup game between the previous season's Premier League champions and FA Cup winners. Now, if this is the same team that won the Premier League and won the FA Cup, so if the same team won both of them, then the runners-up in the league take the second spot in that game. And the special thing about this one is there's no prize at the end of it. You get a nice little trophy shield, but there's no competition you get qualified for. You win it and that's it. The whole thing about this, and this goes all the way back to 1908, is all the funds raised for this game are distributed between charities of throughout the country. So, however much money is made, it doesn't go to the teams, it doesn't go to the ground, it doesn't go to sponsors or businesses. No, all the money raised from this one game gets given out to community charities throughout the country. So, as I say, that kicks the whole season off. Then we get into the leagues kicking off. Then we get into the other two cups. Now these, unlike the league, these are knockout competitions. So, once you lose, you're out, that's it. No second chances, no coming back, you're done. You win, you move on, you lose, you're out. So, we're going to start with the League Cup. I say this is the one that changes its name every year depending on the sponsors. Now this is only for the teams in the top 4 divisions. So that will be the Premier League, the Championship, League 1 and League 2. So in the first round, all the teams from the Championship, League 1 and League 2 are put all their names into the hat and they're drawn out to see who plays who. You can play anybody, you could be home, you could be away, but you're drawn against a team, that's who you're playing, and you get one game. You win it, you move on, you lose, you're out. Then, after all them games have been played, all the winners from round 1 are drawn alongside all the teams from the Premier League who are not playing in a European competition. So, again, all the winners from round 1, all their names go in a hat. All the Premier League teams who are not in a European competition go into the same hat, mixed up, teams are pulled out at random, and whoever you're picked against, that's who you're playing. So, theoretically, and as does happen, you could have a team from League 2 drawn against a Premier League team. And they would play. The winner would progress, the loser out. Then in round 3, all the Premier League teams who are in European competition are added in to play against the winners of the games of round 2. And then it's just the winners are drawn every round to see who plays who. So you cannot predict your path to the final because, well, you don't know who you're going to be drawn against out of all the other teams that win. At the end of this competition, the winner not only takes away a really nice trophy and a decent sum of money, they're also guaranteed a place in next season's Europa League. No matter where they finish in the Premier League or their respective league, they're guaranteed to be playing in the Europa League the following season. Now, moving on to the FA Cup. This is, as I say, the more prestigious out of the two cup competitions for the simple fact there are so many teams in it. Now, it does get a little bit complicated, so I'm going to try my best to keep it as simple as possible. To get into the FA Cup, there are actually 6 qualifying rounds. Now, these are contested between the teams from the 5th to the 10th division. So all them teams across multiple leagues will play each other and knock each other out in a competition over 6 rounds. At the end of them 6 rounds, there'll be 32 teams left. These will qualify for the first round of the FA Cup proper. So, even before the FA Cup has started, 32 teams have already gone through 6 rounds of knockout competition. Now, as I say, these are all your amateur league teams. When the first round proper is drawn, these 32 amateur teams will be put into a hat where they will be met by 48 professional teams. These will come from League 1 and League 2. The winners of these will then progress to round 2, and they will all be put in again to a pot and drawn to play each other. Then they'll move on to round 3, where they'll be joined then by the 20 Premier League clubs and 24 Championship clubs. This will then progress as a knockout competition, the same way the League Cup did. So all the teams will be drawn out of a hat, or a bowl as it is in this case. The winners will then move on to the next round, be all put back into that hat and then drawn out again to see who they're playing, and so on and so forth until you get to the final. The winners of the final will then gain an automatic place in the Europa League and will take one of the spots in the Community Shield for the next season. Now, the last little bit that I want to try and talk about is what happens if a team win the FA Cup, the League Cup, and finish in a Champions League spot. Because technically they would have earned 2 Europa League places and a Champions League spot. Well, what will happen is they will lose the 2 Europa League spots and just qualify for the Champions League spot where they have finished. Them 2 Europa League spots will then be put into the league. So, where it was just 5th place gets a Europa League, it then becomes 5th, 6th and 7th will take a Europa League spot. And then 8th will be the Europa Conference League. So, technically, if you finish in the top 8 in the Premier League, there is a good chance you're going to get a European competition the following season. This also goes for if, for example, a team wins the League Cup and finishes in the top 4, and another team wins the FA Cup and finishes in the top 4. They'll both just take the Champions League spots, and the 2 Europa League spots will go into the league, coming up with the same scenario. So that is how the leagues work. That's how the English leagues work. And as I say, most of the other European countries have a similar thing. Scotland is slightly different with their promotion and relegation. Plus, they only have 4 leagues and there's only 10 teams in each league. So they play each other 4 times instead of 2. But most of it is pretty similar. And they also have some weird thing that halfway through the season in the Premier League gets split into 2 leagues. I'm not sure how that works myself. But for the most part, most leagues are the same. Now, I could go into the Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League, but they're all pretty much similar. Although, the reason I'm not going into it is because when I wrote these notes, they were all pretty much the same. However, since I wrote these, things have come out that the leagues and competitions are changing the format. So, from what I'm getting, the Champions League is going more from a knockout competition to a league competition. And the Europa League and Europa Conference are going to be changing the way they work as well. So, yeah, I'm not going to get into them today. I'm sure if you were interested, you could find out how they are. But there we have it. That is actually a lot shorter than I thought this was going to be. And hopefully it has enlightened you a little bit more on how European football, or mainly English football, is laid out, how it's played, how our seasons look, and all the different competitions that you have to play in. I mean, for example, if you were to win the Premier League, the following season you would have the Premier League, the League Cup, the FA Cup, and the Champions League to contend with. So you'd have 4 competitions. And some teams actually do this season after season. Other teams, not so much. But that is how it goes. And the thing is, it's not a case of the big teams are always going to be the big teams, the little teams are always going to be the little teams. The FA Cup especially, the number of times you see a giant killing where a team from a lower league, not just like the league down, but it could be 2, 3, 4, 5 leagues down, beat a team, a bigger team. Not always, but it happens more often than you'd think. On top of that, yeah, I mean, there's so much I could actually go into, but as I say, if I went into all the detail, all the history, we would be here till next year. So, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully, we've got you more understanding what goes on over here. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this little tidbit, and hopefully, yeah, you've gone away with a little bit more knowledge. But in the meantime, I've been Sank84. This has been my 40th birthday special. Thank you so much for joining me. Look after each other, and until next time, Goodbye.